This is the story of a boy who managed to survive after being lost in the ocean for 49 days alone. The inhabitants of the islands of coastal areas use the sea as a source of their livelihood. However, they always remain wary of the sea and what it hides for its mysterious world that is very volatile and surprising. Humans are not welcome there, so fishermen must always remain devoted to what is happening around them. Perhaps they will meet strong winds or great waves. Then no one can survive, and the slightest mistake may cost many lives. We often hear incidents of drowning people from time to time, that some of them disappeared forever. But the biggest danger facing people at sea is running out of food and water. Today we will tell you the stories of two people who did not lose hope and could survive in the sea. Fishermen in Indonesia fish on very small boats, which serve as a fishing net, but a part of these boats float on the water and can only accommodate more than one person. So the fisherman sails on board for a whole month or more. During the day, fisherman collects the fish stuck in the fishing nets, and at night he lights a lamp that attracts fish to him, while his family delivers food and water to him from time to time. These boats are non-paddling and don't have any engines, so they remain in place for several months. And this is what happened when the 18-year-old Indonesian young man named Aldi Nobel Adelman. Aldi signed a contract with one of the great fishermen that forces him to work in the sea in the same manner that we mentioned before, for a continuous period of 6 months. And the place where he fished was about 77 kilometers away from the beach. Aldi had 2 years of experience in fishing because he started this work when he was 16 years old. One day the waves washed his boat to a distant place, and he didn't know that he'd spend the 49 days without any contact with humans. And many crews and commercial ships had passed him by, but unfortunately, no one paid attention to him, and he didn't have much water or food left. He started fishing for himself and used the same wood from the boat to start a fire. The most difficult thing was that he didn't have enough water to drink, so he took only 3 sips of the remaining water a day and tried to desalinate seawater with his clothes. Unfortunately, he was actually able to separate a good amount of salts from that water. The poor kid didn't know what to do other than crying and clinging to hopes. On the 31st of August 2018, a miracle happened when one of the rescue organizations picked up a radio signal coming from that boat. And although it was 1,300 kilometers away from that place, they managed to rescue him, gave him water and appropriate clothes, and provided medical care for him. Aldi was taken to Japan and then sent back to Indonesia. After these difficult days, the young man decided not to risk his life again. As the second story, it happened in 1982 to an American fisherman named Steve. This man, at the age of 30, decided to cross the Atlantic by sea with his boat. But his plan was never fulfilled. His hypothetical trip path was starting from the United States of America, and then reaching the United Kingdom, and then heading south towards Spain and Morocco, then returning to the United States. Steve had no problem at the start of his journey, then embarked on January 29th. When he reached the return point on the 4th of February, he encountered huge waves that led to the sinking of his boat, and luckily he was able to escape using a lifeboat. However, the bad days did not start yet. The man started feeling lonely at sea, and despite the lifeboat having an emergency radio, its range didn't exceed 220 km. This is at a time when he was 550 km away from the nearest beach. People started to assume that Steve was already dead because he hadn't contacted anyone for a long time. Steve was able to cling to life for 76 days. He used to desalinate seawater using solar energy, and he had to blow his boat every 4 days. He even saw sharks circling around his boat several times. After 2 whole weeks on board, the desperate man managed to catch his first fish. But he had to eat it raw because there was nothing to help him cook it. He knew that surrendering meant death, so he used to exercise to keep himself distracted from any crazy or disappointing thoughts. On the 76th day, a miracle happened when a fisherman from Guatemala discovered him by chance, and he weighed only 32 kg at the time. These 2 stories inspire us, give us hope, and prove that if the human mind continues to try and doesn't give up, it can do the impossible no matter how harsh the circumstances. None of us knows when they'll reap the fruits of their spent efforts and fatigue, because what's important is that we never give up.